Good afternoon. I am Matt Fruman, Ward 3 Council Member and Chairperson of the Committee on Human Services. Today is Monday, July 13th, 2026. We are meeting in person in room 412 of the John A. Wilson Building and virtually via Zoom. The time is now 1:18 p.m. Today, I will be joined shortly by my colleague, Chairperson Janice Lewis-George of the Committee on Facilities. Today, we are conducting a public hearing to discuss B26-0121, the St. Elizabeth's East Parcel 13 Extension of Disposition Authority Amendment Act of 2025. B26-0466, the St. Elizabeth's East Parcel 13 Term Sheet Amendment Act of 2025. B26-0425, the St. Elizabeth's East Parcels 7, 8, and 9 Surplus Declaration and Disposition Approval Act of 2025. And B26-0530, the St. Elizabeth's East Parcel 6 Surplus Declaration and Disposition Approval Act of 2025. The St. Elizabeth site is a National Historic Landmark located in Congress Heights and comprised of east and west campuses. In 1987, the federal government transferred ownership of the East Campus to the district. The St. Elizabeth's East Redevelopment Framework Plan and the subsequent St. Elizabeth's East Master Plan and Design Guidelines established the vision, scope, and details of how the district would revitalize the East Campus. The measures we are hearing today would make that revitalization a reality, bringing hundreds of units of new housing, dense, walkable cityscape defined by multi-purpose development, and millions of dollars of economic activity to Ward 8. Two of the bills, B26-0425 and B26-0530, were jointly referred to the Committee on Facilities and the Committee on Human Services, while the two bills related to St. Elizabeth's East Parcel 13, B26-0121 and B26-0466, were solely referred to the Committee on Human Services. I will turn to my colleague, Councilmember Lewis-George, in just a moment, but finish off the introduction for those portions, of the bills that are referred exclusively to the Committee on Human Services. Located on 1100 Alabama Avenue Southeast, Parcel 13 consists of approximately 138,162 square feet of vacant land abutting the new St. Elizabeth's Hospital. The St. Elizabeth's East Parcel 13 Surplus Declaration and Disposition Approval Act declared Parcel 13 as surplus and allowed its disposal for private development. The district's authority to dispose of the property, however, was in effect for only 2 years from the bill's effective date through March 10th, 2025. B26-121, the St. Elizabeth's East Parcel 13 Extension of Disposition Authority Act of 2025, would extend the district's authority to dispose of the parcel by 2 years through March 10th, 2027. The Office of the Deputy Mayor for Planning and Economic Development, or DEMPED, contends that the previous disposition authority expired because of several unforeseeable factors, including the chosen developer, Neighborhood Development Corporation, ceasing operations due to market conditions and challenges with the pre-existing WMATA infrastructure on the property. DEMPED has shared that the design work continues to progress, with the identified challenges being carefully managed to ensure project feasibility and safety. Under Section 10-801 of the DC Code, substantive changes to the business terms of the transaction described in a term sheet must be submitted to the council in a proposed resolution. Bill B26-0466, the St. Elizabeth East Parcel 13 Term Sheet Amendment Act of 2025, would authorize specific amendments to the term sheet for Parcel 13. First, the name of the developer will be amended to reflect the new developer for the property, Dante's Partners Acquisitions, LLC. Second, the amount of the proposed gallery and retail square footage included in the original proposal will be reduced from 21,000 square feet to 5,000 square feet, and the number of housing units to be built will be reduced from 421 to 241. Third, the period for closing on the parcel will be extended from 2 years to 6 years following the council's initial approval of disposition. Finally, the period for substantial completion of the parcel will be extended from 36 months to 42 months following the start of construction. I look forward to learning more today about why these revisions to the term sheet are necessary. It is not clear to me, for example, why it is necessary to reduce the number of housing units, and we must ensure we are putting all district-owned land to its highest and best use to create opportunity for our residents. I will turn in a moment to Council Member Lewis George for her opening statement and for her to chair the portion of the committee related to the bills under her purview. I will say that we are all excited about these transactions because the residents of the Congress Heights neighborhood in Ward 8 have been waiting a long time for the continued development of St. Elizabeth East, and I'm excited for the conversation about how the future of that site can be pursued today. And with that, I will turn to Councilmember Lewis George.
Thank you so much, Matt, and good afternoon. I am Ward 4 Councilmember Janice Lewis George, Chair of the Committee on Facilities, and thank you to Chairperson Fruman for co-chairing this hearing with me. B26-0530 related to Parcel 6 and B26-0425 related to Parcels 7, 8, and 9 are surplus dispositions that were sequentially referred to the Committee on Facilities and the Committee on Human Services. To start, I'll provide some background on the St. Elizabeth campus and these parcels. The federal government transferred the 183-acre St. Elizabeth East campus to the district in 1987. The campus is a National Historic Landmark and a local historic district in Congress Heights. The district's 2012 master plan calls for more than 5 million square feet of mixed-use development on the campus, pairing new construction with the reuse of historic buildings. Some of that vision is already built, and the two bills before us would continue development by building out 4 parcels totaling about 12 acres. Bill 26-0425 covers parcels 7, 8, and 9, roughly 7.4 acres at 1100 Alabama Avenue Southeast. Parcel 7 holds the RISE Demonstration Center and a surface parking lot, and parcels 8 and 9 hold 2 vacant historic buildings 100 and 102. The executive's case for surplus rests on facility condition assessments from 2010, which found that rehabilitating the historical buildings for district use would be cost prohibitive, and on the master plan, which designates these parcels for mixed-use redevelopment rather than government facilities. The executive held surplus hearings on January 9th, 2019 for Parcel 7 and November 7th, 2019 for Parcels 8 and 9, and disposition hearings on March 4th, 2021 for Parcels 8 and 9 and September 9th, 2021 for Parcel 7. The goals of this disposition are to produce affordable housing, return 2 long vacant historic buildings to use, and bring office and retail activity to the campus. Following a 2021 request for proposals that drew 2 responses, a selection panel unanimously recommended St. Elizabeth Legacy Partners, a team of 13 local certified business enterprises, or CBEs, led by the Mankiti Group. The plan includes about 212,000 square feet of office anchored by a new Department of Behavioral Health headquarters that the Department of General Services would lease back about 29,000 square feet of retail and rehabilitation of Building 100 as a community and innovation hub. The housing program is 277 rental units, all of them affordable, serving households between 30 and 80% of area median income, with half the units at 2 bedrooms and a fifth at 3 bedrooms, plus 18 for-sale townhomes, 5 priced for households at 50 to 80% of AMI, and the rest capped at 120%. Bill 26530 covers parcel 6, about 4.7 vacant acres along 13th Street that the master plan designated for residential, commercial, and retail use, connecting the campus to the Ravines green space. The parcel has no structures and no current district use. The executive held the surplus hearing on January 9th, 2019, and the disposition hearing on April 10th, 2024. Following a 2023 request for proposals, a selection panel unanimously recommended parcel 6 community partners led by Banneker Communities with District Development Group and RBK Construction. The plan is 2 mixed-unit buildings, the Martin with 220 rental units, ground floor retail, parking, and a public park, and the Malcolm with 286 rental units and retail. This is a 507 rental unit serving households between 30 and 100% of AMI, plus 9 for-sale townhomes priced for households at 80 to 100% of AMI. Together, these bills would put nearly 800 income-restricted rental units and 27 townhomes on land that produces nothing for the district today, with all CBE development teams and Ward 8 hiring commitments. Those are real benefits, and I want to acknowledge them. I also want to be candid about what these committees need to probe. The district is conveying about 12 acres for nominal consideration. The independent appraisal for parcels 7, 8, and 9 valued the land at $13.9 million as is, and at negative $87.2 million under the proposed development plan, meaning the plan's costs exceed its market value and the projects depend on public subsidy, including $37.7 million from the Housing Production Trust Fund and federal and local income housing tax credit. Because the district's return comes through housing, jobs, and taxes rather than land proceeds, that return exists only if the project delivers. The Attorney General noted for both transactions that no draft ground lease was provided for review. Each bill gives the mayor 4 years to close, and residents asked as early as 2021 what performance metrics and clawbacks would protect the public investment. We will now turn to the public witness portion of today's hearing before hearing from the government witnesses with the Department of Planning and Economic Development. Our first panel of witnesses include Letitia Short, public witness, Monica Ray, the president of the Soul of the City, Marcus Corngay, public witness, and Elias Abubakar, public witness.
Okay, so Letitia Short, Monica Ray, when you're ready. Councilmember Louis George popped back up, but when you're ready, Ms. Ray.
For a moment, as I go give a speech and return, I will be giving it over to you, Chairman Fruman.
All right, thank you very much. We'll watch for you to come back.
Greetings, Chairwoman Louis George, Chairman Fruman, and other members of the council. It is my distinct honor to offer my strongest support for the 3 development proposals presented here, including Parcel 6 for the Community Partners proposal for St. Elizabeth's Parcel 6. I write from 3 perspectives: president of the Congress Heights Partnership, founding chair of the Soul of the City bid, and perhaps most importantly, a proud Congress Heights resident. I've watched this community over decades evolve. I could spend this opportunity highlighting the historic accomplishments that have brought us to this moment. You might hear about unprecedented $1.5 billion of investment. You may hear how under the extraordinary stewardship of Latrina Owens, parcels that stood vacant, blighted, and fenced off have become thriving centers of housing, commerce, recreation, and opportunity. You may even hear how Parcel 15 has supported 13 small businesses, created opportunities for scores of Black women-owned businesses through the Blackbone Project, and welcomed nearly 2 million visitors since opening. These are all remarkable accomplishments worthy of celebration. But today I want to speak about something even more important. I want to speak about the power of place-based equitable development. For decades, I've driven past the St. E's campus as it sat behind locked gates, deteriorating, disconnected from the community, and serving as a painful reminder of promises deferred. Generation after generation of Congress Heights residents have looked at these fences wondering whether meaningful investment would ever reach our neighborhood. Then something remarkable began to happen. The campus began to come alive. Buildings were restored, businesses arrived, residents returned, public spaces were activated. Hope became visible again. I watched the neighborhood surrounding the campus begin to transform alongside it. And today, through the creation of the Solar City bid, our community has an organization dedicated to ensuring that this momentum continues and that revitalization benefits the very residents and businesses who have sustained this neighborhood through decades of disinvestment. That transformation did not happen by accident. It happened because the district made a conscious decision to invest in equity, to create opportunity for local developers, notably small businesses, community-owned and based organizations, to become business owners, builders, and partners in our city's future. That is why today's project represents such a historic milestone. For perhaps the first time, we're celebrating 3 development teams that are all minority-led, not because of coincidence, but because the district intentionally invested in equity and built pathways for diverse developers to compete and succeed at the highest levels. This achievement alone deserves recognition. But what makes these parcels especially compelling is that they reflect the very principles our community has long advocated for. I'll talk about Parcel 6 as an exemplar, proposing not simply 2 buildings, but proposing a model of community-centered development that aligns with aspirations that residents have expressed for years. Their vision includes more than 500 mixed-income apartments, deeply affordable housing for families earning 50% or AMI or below, opportunities for homeownership through live-work townhomes, neighborhood-serving retail, public green space, and an active public plaza that will further connect the St. E's campus with the Congress Heights commercial corridor. Equally as important is how this development will be delivered. The proposal emerged from sustained engagement with community and reflects collaboration with ANCHC, neighborhood organizations, residents, business owners, and local leadership. That engagement resulted in unanimous ANC support, not simply because of what will be built, but because residents recognize themselves in the vision. As president of the Congress Heights Partnership and chair of the bid, I am particularly encouraged by the project's commitment to supporting local entrepreneurship. The proposed retail spaces, opportunities for small businesses displaced, workforce development initiatives, job fairs, financial planning programming, and meaningful contracting commitments all recognize that successful development is measured not only in square feet constructed, but in lives improved. Perhaps most important, this development demonstrates what true economic inclusion looks like. The community partners brings together 5 minority-owned organizations, including 3 certified business enterprises and a nonprofit community development corporation, with a development team that is 100% CBE and DBE equity owned. Their commitment to directing at least 35% of contracting dollars to district and Ward 8 businesses and prioritizing those residents through first source hiring represents exactly the type of wealth building and economic participation our community has sought for generations. As someone who has spent more than 3 decades in advancing equitable development east of the river, I cannot imagine a more fitting place to celebrate this moment than here, on the nation's most historic campuses in one of Washington's most resilient communities. Congress Heights has waited generations for this investment. Today, we're not simply witnessing new construction, we're witnessing proof that equitable development can work. We're witnessing proof that intentional investment in minority developers produces extraordinary outcomes. We are witnessing proof that public land can generate public good while creating pathways to ownership, wealth creation, affordable housing, and opportunity for the communities that have waited the longest. On behalf of the Congress Heights Partnership and the bid, and a proud resident of Congress Heights, I enthusiastically support Parcel 6 community partners and propose the companion projects are pressed to completion. Together, they represent more than development. They represent a new chapter in the story of Congress Heights, one where investment and inclusion move together, where community is not displaced but strengthened, and where community who have called this neighborhood home finally have the opportunity to shape its future and benefit. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ray, for your testimony and for your work in the Soul of the City bid. I don't believe we have a copy of your testimony, so if you could submit it, that would be great.
Will do. Thank you.
Marcus Cornegay?
Yes, good afternoon, Councilmember Louis George, Councilmember Fruman, Council. My name is Marcus Cornegay. I'm an executive director of Prosperity Alliance, a boutique residential development firm, and a proud owner of Holiday Liquors in Congress Heights, the only African-American owned liquor store east of Anacostia River, and one of only 4 Black-owned liquor stores in the District of Columbia. Yeah, out of 212. That distinction is not something I say with pride because it should be rare. I say it because it should no longer be rare. For generations, too many doors to ownership, development, and wealth creation have remained closed to entrepreneurs who look like me. My own journey has been one of perseverance, resilience, and being fortunate enough to receive opportunities that have not historically been extended to many men of color. That is why today's conversation is so important. The Equity Development Initiative at St. Elizabeth's is more than another real estate transaction. It represents a different way of thinking about development, one that intentionally creates pathways for local minority-led firms to compete, build, and grow. The fact that 3 minority-led development teams have emerged through this process is quite historic. It demonstrates that when opportunity is intentionally designed to be inclusive, excellence follows. These are not symbolic partnerships. These are capable developers, experienced professionals, and committed community leaders who understand this neighborhood because they have invested in neighborhoods like this for many years. As someone who has built businesses east of the river, I know firsthand that communities cannot thrive on promises alone. They need investment. They need housing. They need neighborhoods serving retail. They need places where residents can shop, work, gather, and build wealth without leaving their own community. The need for affordable housing has never been greater. As a developer of affordable housing, I see the need firsthand every day. Families deserve quality homes they can afford to remain in as our neighborhoods grow and change. Likewise, our commercial corridors deserve vibrant retail that creates jobs, keeps dollars circulating locally, and gives residents access, to the goods and services every community should enjoy. Development is at its best when it creates opportunity, not just buildings and structures. The work happening at St. Elizabeth's has the potential to become a national model for equitable development if we continue to move it forward with urgency and intentionality. I encourage every stakeholder to stay committed to this vision. So let's continue creating opportunities for minority developers like myself and others in this room. Let's continue expanding affordable housing. Let's continue building retail that serves our neighborhoods. Let's continue proving that inclusive economic development is not charity, it is smart economic policy. The decisions we make today will influence who builds wealth, who owns assets, and who has opportunity for generations to come. This is one of those moments. Let's not miss it, please. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. And that was a statistic I was not aware of, and I am grateful for you bringing it to my attention. That is really something that needs to be addressed. I don't think we have a copy of your testimony, so if you can be sure to upload it so that it can be a part of the record.
Absolutely.
And then I think Elias Abu Bakar, When you're ready.
Good afternoon, Chairperson and panel's members. My name is Elias Abu Baker. I reside at the St. Elizabeth East and also owns a business called Bunatol Cafe with my wife. So I'm here to offer strong support for selected development teams for parcel 6, 7, 8, 9, and 13. My support is personal. Our business did not exist until parcel 15 was developed. And the development did not just build something, it has created opportunity for us and bring a new customer, economy activities, jobs, and hopes. And we have hired multiple employees now in the neighborhood Ward 8, and we have like 3 right now. And as I say this, proves that is equitability development works when it is done intentionally. It is strengthened in neighborhood and helps businesses grow alongside investment. The progress we have seen is meaningful. Vacant buildings becomes active, the streets becomes destinations, and residents are beginning feel that is investment has finally reached the community. But we cannot stop now and emphasize that momentum is matter, and stalling redevelopment creates uncertainty and discourages further investment. I encourage the district to approve these teams and stay committed until the remaining parcels are transformed, continually to extend support and opportunity toward it. I close by asking everyone keep moving forward so St. Elizabeth can be restored into a vibrant and thriving destination it was meant to be. Thank you for your time and commitment and for future of Ward 8.
Thank you very much for your testimony. I don't believe we have a copy. If you could upload it. And
Sure.
I'm not going to have questions for this panel, but I very much appreciate your testimony. I think part of what is happening here is a development project that can create opportunities once completed for a community. But part of what is striking from your testimony is that the process of developing the property can also create opportunities and is also an act of equity. So really appreciate your testimony. Message received. Our second public witness panel is Bo Manchetti and Charles Battle. I know that Buabenti is online, and I'll call him up separately. We'll do the in-person witnesses first. Is there any other public witnesses, people who would come to testify as public witnesses who have not yet been called on? Okay, looks like we're good. And Mr. Binti, we'll get to you after we finish these 2 witnesses. All right, Mr. Manchetti, when you're ready.
Good afternoon, Chairperson Fruman, Chairperson Lewis George, and members of the committee. My name is Bo Manchetti, and I'm here today representing St. Elizabeth Legacy Partners, or SELP, as we like to call it, a team led by the Manchetti Group alongside an incredible network of local minority business partners that include H2 Design Build, HEP Construction, ProLightened, and United Investments. We stand before you today in strong support of the Surplus Declaration Disposition Approval Act for parcels 7, 8, and 9. This means that DC tax dollars spent here will directly provide housing, retail, and community services to the community, while at the same time building local capacity, maximizing certified business enterprises and CVE participation, and generating local jobs. Our team was selected by DMPED with a clear historic mandate to transform the 7.4 acres of this critical transit-oriented site into a welcoming, equitable gateway that seamlessly weaves the Congress Heights community into the fabric of the St. Elizabeth's East campus. We feel strongly that local long-term ownership and leadership will not just drive equity and diversity, It will also ensure durable and lasting opportunity and impact for local Ward 8 residents and small businesses. We've centered our approach on empowering Ward 8 residents and small businesses through 4 pillars. The first is accessible housing and homeownership opportunities for Ward 8 residents. The development program delivers around 200 multifamily, 100% affordable rental apartments, and 30 for-sale workforce townhomes. We're dedicated to creating stable long-term options for working families and keeping wealth local by embedding a diverse mix of housing and homeownership opportunities that are attainable for members of the community. Number 2 is a focus on jobs. We're making a clear commitment to Ward 8 by providing hundreds of training opportunities and are striving to reach a goal of at least 100 jobs filled by Ward 8 residents. The third is to create a vibrant neighborhood gateway. We'll be creating over 43,000 square feet of community serving retail, and our retail strategy prioritizes legacy Ward 8 entrepreneurs and small businesses, creating an active corridor along Martin Luther King Jr. Avenue Southeast at the entrance to this East Campus. The fourth pillar is historic preservation and community continuation. We take our stewardship of this historic landmark seriously. We're committed to the meticulous adaptive reuse of Building 100, Parcel 8, and Building 102, Parcel 9, into innovative educational, workforce development, and business hubs. Furthermore, we recognize how essential the current RISE demonstration center is to the community, and this center will be included in the restoration of Parcel 8. Once we assembled our development team and committed to an approach that's centered on supporting local residents and businesses, we engaged and received commitments from 13 exclusive programmatic tenant partners who will be part of the St. Elizabeth's Legacy Partners team. These programmatic tenants are based around 5 disciplines: neighborhood serving retail, arts and culture, childcare and family empowerment, intergenerational community services, and innovation and workforce development. We believe our experience will allow us to create a legacy through this project by executing a plan that maximizes what the site has to offer and creates opportunities for the local community. Our project design and programming are rooted in the history of Ward 8, the master plan for St. Elizabeth's, and the current context of the campus. Our plan pays homage to the past and the restoration of 2 beautiful historic buildings, as well as delivering new mixed-use construction. The programming creates an additional opportunity east of the river for residents to live, work, and play. Through this project, we continue to scale our commitment to Ward 8 with benefits that strengthen the Congress Heights community, the soul of the city. Enhanced access to goods and services for the Congress Heights neighborhood that further connect the community to the St. Elizabeth's campus, affordable housing for Ward 8 residents, homeownership and wealth building opportunities for Ward 8 residents, local business growth, and construction and permanent jobs for Ward 8 residents. We want to thank Mayor Bowser, Deputy Mayor Nina Albert, Director of Real Estate Latrina Owens, the DEMPED team, ANC 8C, and the residents of Ward 8 for their extensive collaboration during the RFP process. We respectfully request that the committee approve this disposition act so we may move forward with this project that will deliver the neighborhood assets that Congress Heights residents have long championed. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much for your testimony, Mr. Minkevi. Mr. Battle?
It's on now. Sorry. Good afternoon, Chairwoman Lewis George, Chairman Fruman, and the members of the committees on Human Services and on Facilities and Family Services. My name is Charles Battle, Development Director for Banneker Communities. I am honored to testify on behalf of Parcel 6 Community Partners, a joint venture of 3 certified business enterprises and a nonprofit community development corporation that will lead the transformation of this important site. Banneker Communities, a CBE development and construction firm headquartered in Ward 8, leads this partnership, and I'm proud to represent our team today. I'm here in strong support of B26-0530, the St. Elizabeth East Parcel 6 Surplus Declaration and Disposition Approval Act of 2025. Legislation that will turn 4 acres of vacant land into a living example of what community-driven, equity-centered development can achieve for the district. If this act is approved, our team will build 2 mixed-use, mixed-income buildings totaling approximately 507 apartments with ground floor retail along both buildings and a generous public plaza between them and the district-owned garage, a true placemaking opportunity with room for 1 or 2 retail kiosks. 8 for sale live work townhomes will line the 13th Street, creating a rare and direct path to home ownership on the St. Elizabeth's East Campus, while extending the retail corridor toward the Care First Arena and the Congress Heights Metro Station. This is transit-oriented development in the truest sense. By maximizing density consistent with the district's comprehensive plan, we will deliver new, affordable, and workforce housing steps from a metro station, with unit sizes ranging from efficiencies to 3 bedrooms. At least 30% of apartment units will be affordable to houses earning 50% of AMI or less, and 25% of the live-work townhomes will be affordable at 80% AMI or less. This is exactly the kind of deeply affordable, transit-connected housing this council has fought to protect and expand, and it is exactly what Ward 8 and district families need to stay in the neighborhoods they have built. We'll also be bringing 17,000 square feet of new retail space that activates the 13th Street corridor for the neighborhood. This proposal did not come from a boardroom, it came from the community. It reflects sustained engagement with ANC 8C, community groups, Ward 8 Councilmember Trayon White Sr., and direct conversations with Congress Park residents, business owners, and advocates. That engagement earned our team a unanimous vote of support from ANC 8C, a mandate we take seriously and intend to honor at every phase of construction. Community input shaped a program that includes a significant expansion of affordable housing for Ward 8 and district residents, a half-acre of new parks and green space designed to improve quality of life in Congress Heights, retail opportunities for local entrepreneurs, including small business owners currently at Sycamore and Oak who would need space during that building's redevelopment, and substantial contracting opportunities for small Black and brown firms and CBE certified firms across design, construction, and operations. Our transportation plan reflects this council's value around sustainability and access, covered parking for every rental building, bicycle parking, EV charging for residents, and direct connectivity to the adjacent public garage for retail customers. Building amenities will include a fitness room, community lounge, landscape courtyard, and a dedicated on-site property management, the kind of everyday infrastructure that helps families and seniors alike put down roots and age in place in the community they call home for the long term. In recognition of this site's place in Ward 8's history and identity, we are naming our 2 buildings, the Malcolm and the Martin, honoring Malcolm X and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., 2 of the most consequential leaders this nation has produced. Both buildings will meet the district's green community standards and reflect the architectural quality this campus and the council deserve. The project's deepest commitment is to Ward 8 residents and Ward 8 businesses, with real structural opportunities to participate, not just benefit from the sidelines. We're committing 35% of contract dollars to the district-based and Ward 8-based CBEs and SBEs. And first source hiring will give priority to Ward 8 and district residents for every job this project creates. Parcel 6 Community Partners is composed of 5 minority-owned organizations, 4 of them district-based, 3 of them CBEs, alongside 1 community development corporation. Every partner of this venture is committed to expanding CBE inclusion, hiring district residents, and honoring first source. Our local hiring program will draw on the resources of our partner, Congress Heights Community Training and Development Corporation, and will include the job training, employment support services, and contracts to local, small, and minority and women-owned enterprises that in turn hire locally. And here's why I'm most proud to report. CBE and DBE equity ownership across this development team is 100%. Not a fraction, not a set aside, the entire ownership structure. This is what it looks like when the district's minority business development goals are not an afterthought, but the foundation of a deal. For a single shovel breaks ground, we will run small business capacity building workshops and job fairs for Congress Park, Ward 8, and district residents and businesses, a model our team has delivered successfully on other projects across the district. Once construction is complete, we expect to generate more than $2 million annually in new wages and contracts that stay in Ward 8 and the district. And after residents move in, we will keep showing up with financial literacy workshops, household budgeting support, and financial planning services for our new tenants and neighbors. Chairwoman Lewis George and Chairman Fruman, this council has spent this budget season fighting to protect the residents who need the district's support most: seniors, families facing housing instability, and workers trying to build a foundation for their future. Parcel 6 is a chance to build exactly that kind of deeply affordable, community-owned, transit-connected housing that reduces the need for that fight tomorrow. It is also a chance to prove once again that the district's minority business development goals produce real ownership, real wealth, and real jobs for the people who call Ward 8 home. At a moment when district's autonomy and the home rule are under real strain, projects like Parcel 6 are proof of something important, that district residents, district businesses, and the District of Columbia government working together can turn public land into public good, with local ownership and local jobs at the center of the deal. That is self-determination made tangible, one building, one job, one family at a time. We're grateful for the opportunity to bring this vision before you, and we respectfully ask for the committee's and the council's support of B26-0530. Thank you for your time this afternoon and for your continued partnership for the people of Ward 8.
Thank you very much for your testimony, Mr. Battle. And we will now turn to Bua Binti, who is online. Mr. Binti, if I see you've been elevated as a panelist, if you are ready, if you can turn on your camera and your microphone. If there are any issues that arise while you're testifying, you can send a message to the host, who's labeled as the Committee on Human Services, but it looks like we should be good to go. As far as I know, are there any other virtual witnesses? No? Okay. So then, Mr. Binti, when you're ready. Oop, you need to unmute yourself. There you go.
Good afternoon.
You're good. Nice to see you.
Awesome. Thank you. Can you hear me fine?
Yep,
Just wanna
sure
make sure
can.
everyone can hear me.
Yep, we can hear you.
Good afternoon, Councilmember Fruman and Councilmember Janice George. Thank you for the opportunity to participate in today's hearing. My name is Bua Binti, and I'm the founder and CEO of Dumas Collective, a Black-owned Washington, D.C. firm committed to creating and preserving affordable housing. Our companies have proudly served the district for the past 20 years. I'm here today to request support from you and your colleagues in advancing Parcel 13, a project with a legacy deeply rooted in the work of Neighborhood Development Company. As you may know, NDC assigned its development rights to Dante's partners, and we are fully committed to building and seeing this project through with your support. Moving forward on Parcel 13 would mark Dante's partners' 12th project partnership with the district and the Office of the Deputy Mayor for Planning and Development. Like Parcel 42, and we don't take these responsibilities lightly. We also appreciate that both Mayor Bowser and the council continue to recognize the importance of investing scarce district-owned resources in housing that serves the public good, particularly for residents of modest income. Our current vision is to divide Parcel 13 into two residential components, one housing for seniors, as well as housing for working-class families. Based on our preliminary research, there are currently no senior housing options on the St. Elizabeth campus or in the immediate surrounding area. We are honored to introduce what will be the first new construction to the site. Our experience in developing affordable and working on workforce housing is extensive, including development of Delta Towers located in Wood 5. So we are now proud. We are proud of that accomplishment, and we intend to bring the same quality and intention to Parcel 13. Again, thank you for your leadership and support of Black-owned, locally based firms as we work to build and own a piece of DC's future, and I welcome any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Really appreciate your testimony. We will now turn to questions for this panel. Mr. Battle, with respect to the residential units in Parcel 6, can you confirm, go over the affordability breakdown for the 4 rent units?
Sure.
And the number for each level of affordability?
Sure. Currently, we're projecting, let's start with the Martin, that has 221 units. 17 of those units will be at 30% AMI, with a mix of 5 studios, 4 one-bedrooms, 4 two-bedrooms, and 4 three-bedrooms. And then we have 51 total at 50% AMI. which are comprised of 12 studio, 13 one-bedrooms, and through 3 bedrooms, 13 each of those. For the Malcolm Building, which is comprised of 286 units total, it's 22 units at 30% AMI, 6 studios, 6 one-bedrooms, 5 two-bedrooms, 5 three-bedrooms. There's 66 at 50% AMI, 16 studios and one-bedrooms, 17 two-bedrooms, and the like for 3 bedrooms.
So, and that lines up with the total of at least 30%
Correct.
of the units are affordable at 50% AMI or less?
Yes,
So-
sir.
So when you add up the 50% and the 30%, then all of those are below.
Correct. You're roughly 7.7% at 30% AMI and 23% and change at the 50%. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. And then 17,000 square feet of retail space that activates 13th Street.
Yes, sir.
Help me envision that. So what's the configuration? Is that in the same buildings?
Yeah, it's like podium
Floors?
on the ground floor is what we're imagining as the retail space with wood frame construction above, which would be the apartments. But the 13th Street side would be the retail facing options with additional opportunities in the green space for maybe 1 or 2 small retail kiosks there.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And wood frame construction?
Yes, sir.
So how many stories will it be?
5, up to 5 above the podium.
Above the so
Correct. 6 total.
concrete podium?
Yes, sir.
And then 5 stories of stick above?
Correct.
Okay. All right. And so, and between the 2 buildings, it's 507 units.
Correct.
And the breakdown, I asked you the breakdown on affordability. Now the breakdown in terms of studios, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms. Can you speak to that?
I don't have that total mix in front of me, but I'm happy to send that separately, if you don't mind. I just have the affordability breakdown in front of me right now.
Okay. And the for sale townhomes?
Yes.
What are the levels of affordability for those?
We're thinking 1 at 50% AMI, 1 at 80%, and the balance at 120.
Okay. And then in terms of the sizes of the units, so a studio, 1 bedroom, a 2 bedroom,
Yeah.
3 bedroom, they may differ.
Yeah.
What's the,
Studios generally around 500 square feet, 1 bedroom, 650, 2 bedrooms, 800, and 3 bedrooms, 1,100 square feet.
and then when you get into a 3 bedroom,
Yes, sir.
the bedrooms themselves, how big are those?
We generally like to program a 10 by 10 bedroom
Uh-huh.
in our configurations. So some like 10 by 11, 10 by 12. Bigger units tend to have bigger bedroom options.
But it's about 100 square feet for the bedroom.
Yes.
Okay. And what about the townhomes? What's the square footage for the townhomes?
Around 700 to 720 square feet. I'm sorry, probably per level.
Per level? So,
Yeah.
so, and how, are they 2-level townhomes or what?
Actually, they're live work. So we're envisioning the first level is partially like a chiropractor or a doctor or esthetician or something and have a business on the 13th Street facing side with 2 to 3 levels above with a possible roof terrace at the top. So the top level is kind of set back a little bit.
And is the idea that the owner of the townhome would work on the first floor?
Correct.
And have you seen a lot of interest in that?
We've gotten a few interested in that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And 720 square feet on a level, so it
Correct.
could be, it
Like
could be
25 to 2,800 square feet when you.
total when
Correct.
it's, if
Yeah.
it's 4 levels.
Right.
And then perhaps a deck on the top.
Yes. Yes. Envision the top level being slightly smaller than the below ones because it's, allow room for the deck.
Got you. What, if any, are the environmental considerations and protections being taken with respect to the ravine which runs along parcel 6?
Oh, we plan to follow district guidelines when it comes to stormwater management and DOE guidelines, but initial soil reports show like no contaminated soils or anything in the area, but we will control the runoff.
And then is the current roadway infrastructure sufficient to provide access for construction teams and equipment for development of the parcels? Is there something that the city's going to have to do or you're going to have to do in order to improve?
We don't
that?
anticipate that at this time. We will have to expand some utilities, probably on our side of the parcel, if you will, to reach the townhomes and such, but we don't anticipate having to improve the road at all.
And then do you have any tenants lined up yet for the retail spaces or expressions of interest in the retail?
Not
spaces?
yet. Not yet. Those are still in flux.
Okay. And then what's your target for beginning construction? Should this go through smoothly? And
Yeah.
what's your hope
I
here
think of fiscal year 2028 for the first building.
for the first building?
Yeah, so that one would get built, then we would roll right into the second.
Because you still have to do all of the, do you have construction drawings and
No,
things like
sir.
that? So you
We're
have to
waiting for the approval of disposition before we engage the architect fully and start design process.
Okay, so it's gonna take months to do that. It's
Correct.
gonna take months to do permitting, so you're hoping early 2020.
Correct. And
FY
there's still
28.
some market study that needs to be done, to your point, for the retail tenants of what's the right mix for that shell. What should we be planning for?
And then, if it were gonna start at the start of fiscal 28, what's your target for completion? Is this?
Construction is roughly 24 months for each one, 22, 24 months for each building. So as we finish one, we roll into the next one.
And we today are going to be talking with folks about a lot of different development that'll be happening in the area. To what extent are you concerned about ongoing construction nearby becoming an impediment to filling places?
No concern at all. This is what we do. We play nice in the sandbox, as I like to say. So,
And this is the thing, we had the Hill East in front of us a couple of weeks ago, and it's a tough environment out there to get things built, and there's a lot of vacancy out there. And yet, do you feel bullish about that if you proceed with this, that there's going to be a market for it?
We do. The response from the community to date has been overwhelming, and happy to see such a product coming or being proposed for this parcel in the district. So I think, yes, the demand is there for everything that we're proposing from all these parcels today. And we had market study during the RFP process that supported that. So I think this is a great opportunity to enhance this area of the board.
And the other projects, the things that have been done at St. E's already, have they filled?
I'm not sure. I would defer to Director Owens. Maybe she knows a
I'll
little
ask.
more about that.
All right, let me watch for, I'm trying to make sure I give time for Councilmember Lewis George should she return, but I don't see her yet. So let's turn to Mr. Minkiti. And Mr. Minkiti, with respect to the residential rental units in parcel 7, we've seen some different numbers. There's a reference in the land disposition and development agreement in the affordable housing plan that there will be 160 units for rent and 18 for sale townhomes. Your testimony indicated 200 multifamily affordable units and 30 for sale workforce townhomes. The disposition analysis, I think, says 277 multifamily rental units and 18 for sale townhomes. What's the right numbers here? And why would there be different numbers in different places? Maybe it's been a moving target, but what are we talking about?
Yeah, so there are have been multiple options and optionality around our response and moving forward this project. The RFP that was originally released for the district included a new office building for the Department of Behavioral Health. And so we have an option that includes an office building for the Department of Behavioral Health, or if the district had another use that they want to put there. It became our understanding during the process, as we've been waiting for this hearing, that the Department of Behavioral Health has renewed its lease where it is. And so we created, or has another option for where they're going to be housed. And so we have created an optionality to up the number of townhouses and increase some of the units to fill the space, to provide a option that did not have the office component in it. So that would have taken, what that did was provide for an affordable rental building that would have approximately 200 units in it, and increase the number of workforce for sale townhomes from 18 to 30.
I see. So it's a moving target. All of these numbers have been true once, but where we are now is 230.
And 30, yes.
And what about the 277 that was in the disposition analysis?
I think that may be an errant number from an earlier,
From
from
something.
a very, very early.
Okay, so where we are is 200 rental, 30 townhomes, for sale townhomes. And in terms of what's led to the change, it's the Department of Behavioral Health, that they were in the mix, then they're out of the mix, and you increase the amount of housing. What's then going through, as I did just before, what's the mix of affordability? Maybe you testified to this, but remind me again.
So the affordability, so in the rental component, the affordability is that 30% of the units are at 50% and below. It's a 7.5% at 30%, 22.5% at 50%. The remainder of those 200 units go up as high. It's a mix of AMIs that go as high as 80, but blend overall to be lower than 60% AMI across the whole building. So it's 100% affordable building, 30% at 50 and below, and 70% ranging from 50 to 80 with an average that's below 60.
But 80 is the peak?
Yeah.
And then what about the townhomes?
The townhomes are designed to be done through HFA's HIP program. So they have a maximum affordability they have an income cap that is set by HIP that changes, but usually targeting about 120% AMI with a few at a lower AMI.
And then back on the rental units, I don't know if you have it handy, but what's the breakdown of unit sizes?
Yeah, so still finalizing the exact unit breakdown, but what we have is over 50% of the units as family size units as 2 and 3 bedrooms, and 20% of the units as 3 bedrooms.
And then,
That would
and the
leave
remaining 50 would
50% would be ones and studios.
ones in studios, okay? And then your square footage, is it, what typically, what is your studio? What is your 1 bedroom? What is your 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom? And then the same question that I'd asked before is, how big are your bedrooms? I ask this question because we see out there folks who are building 3-bedroom apartments with teeny bedrooms, and it matters. So what's your vision for the bedrooms?
Yeah, a typical studio in our programming would be 450 to 550 square feet. A 1 bedroom would range from basically 600 to 750 square feet. 2 bedrooms are 800 square feet to just under 1,000 square feet, and the 3 bedrooms would be sort of 900 to 1,100 square feet. We don't do bedrooms under 10 by 10, so that's sort of what we believe is the minimum functional sort of bedroom size, which is a good size. 10 by 10 is a good size. You may, if you have a weird space, end up 9 by 10 or something like the 9 by 11 or something like that. But that sort of dimension of about 100 square feet is sort of from our experience where you have a functional actual bedroom.
Yeah, and
You can technically go as low as people do. I'm not saying that we brought this go as low as 70 square feet, but I think that 100 square feet is from my experience where you get functional bedroom sizes.
my dad built our house, and the bedroom I grew up in was probably closer to 70. I don't know what the regulations were, but you don't want that to be in for every room. Okay. You spoke to the eligibility criteria for the workforce townhomes. According to the disposition analysis for the parcels, the idea was that the construction could lead to 2,600 construction jobs and 900 permanent jobs. Are those numbers still accurate? Is that right? Those seem like high numbers for something.
They're slightly. They're going to be high. When you take out the office component,
I see.
It will take out some of the permanent jobs. We do have a number of. We have 13 programmatic partners that would be bringing community serving organizations to the site. So there'll be a number of jobs. That'll move and that will be created through that. And the construction jobs are probably about right. Maybe it's a little high when you take out the office component.
And then you both spoke about creating jobs for residents of Ward 8. And in some places, there are references to First Source as a reason for doing that. But I don't know that First Source has a ward-based requirement. But what is it? What steps will you take to achieve your goals for Ward 8 hiring and allow for accountability of your goals, transparency of how you've done on that?
Yeah, a lot of the work with DOES allows for real reporting and transparency around where those goals are. But I think the actual key to ensuring that local residents get jobs goes well beyond that. It extends to the work with Congress Heights Community Development Training Center. It extends the work with UDC and the Workforce Development Center, and it gets all the way specific. We've had a lot of experience in working through these opportunities, and it goes so far as how we build the contracts with our general contractor and the subcontractors that work on the site. Oftentimes, you'll have a subcontractor coming onto the site who has a set of skills. They might be doing a specialist work. They're doing steel fabrication or something like that. And they want to just use the people that they've always used and the employees that they already have. And so one of the things that we've done on all our jobs is encourage every subcontractor to hire at least one local person. They all have some piece of their work that they're doing. And we have often partnered with folks like Charlie Whitaker in Ward 8, who have been great resources at working with local folks to prepare them to do those jobs. And so we'll often encourage those contractors, if there's not an opportunity for you to put someone onto your permanent staff, then contract with this local organization to ensure that some of your job site cleanup, some of your traffic management, some of the pieces that are part of your contract can be handled by local Ward 8 business, knowing that there's a pipeline there of talent from the district, whether it's Ward 8, whether it's Ward 7, whether it's somewhere else in the district, to be able to take advantage of those opportunities and those jobs. So I think it requires more than job fairs. It requires more than some global sort of conceptual commitment to it. It requires the real nitty-gritty of working with the organizations, the small businesses, and the people that are doing this work every day in the community. And it requires some push and backbone from leadership to encourage the general contractor and subcontractors you don't have direct control over to ensure that they actually follow through on those commitments.
Okay. And then on the Rise Center, I think you addressed this in your testimony. You're going to leave it in place.
So the Rise Center is going to relocate. So the Rise Center currently sits on parcel 7. And parcel 7 is the new construction component of this project. So as part of this project, it'll be done in phases. Parcels 8 and 9, so the 2 historic buildings and the townhouses, would be the first phase, which allows those to be completed. And then the Rise Center would move into parcel 8. And so we've worked with the district to understand the specs and requirements of the Rise Center. So the Rise Center would be relocated from its current location and would become part of parcel 8 and would have a permanent home in parcel 8.
It's not that you're going to pick up and move the Rise Center. You're going to
No.
build a new Rise Center.
Yeah, we will renovate part of the historic building to accommodate the Rise Center's
I see.
needs. Yes.
Okay. And the Rise Center building itself is not historic. I see. So you're going to preserve the Rise Center functions, but in a different place.
Correct.
Where do you have a retail component? Do you
Yes, we do.
And do you have
Significant.
anybody lined up, or how's that going?
Yeah, this is one of the things that's really interesting here, that we were really excited about on parcel 7, 8, and 9. And I want to give a acknowledgement to Natasha Thompson from our team who took this upon herself. When we were awarded this project, as we were approaching the RFP, we reached out to a number of programmatic partners that would occupy the building. We understood that we had these unique historic buildings, and we also have what becomes the gateway and the connectivity between the St. Elizabeth East Campus and the community along MLK Avenue. And so there was real intentionality about, normally you don't bring retail partners or tenants onto your development team prior to being awarded an RFP. And in this case, we did. So there's 13 programmatic partners that fall into those areas of innovation and workforce development, intergenerational community services, neighborhood serving retail, arts and culture, and children and family empowerment. And the community serving, so the workforce development, the intergenerational community services, arts and culture, and childcare and family empowerment will be part of 8 and 9, the historic buildings, where most of these organizations had a footprint of people that they serve that was heavily concentrated close to the St. Elizabeth campus and had an excitement about being physically located there. On the retail side, we have 4 retail partners as part of those 13. The DC Credit Union, which would be putting a branch there and bringing financial services into the community. Real desire by the DC Federal Credit Union to be closer to a lot of its account holders. TGI Fridays has signed an intent to occupy the property, and that came out of a lot of work with folks in the community who wanted to have a more established brand, but that could also bring a sit-down restaurant and a place for gathering and having sort of drinks and pulling together more of a happy hour. Creative Grounds DC will open a coffee shop on the place, and Grub Rockstar, which has been a successful catering business, would be opening a retail location for a restaurant. We also have the ability and have worked really closely to design the retail space so that it can accommodate a small box retailer. That was, in prior iterations that had been planned. And so we preserve that ability should one be able to be identified that would be interested in the site.
You said small box retailer, but was it small box grocer?
Small box would mean like a 20,000 to 25,000 square foot user. That could be a grocer, could be a home goods or a other larger format retailer. Many of the large format retailers have scaled down small box versions, and then there are specific small box grocers that do that. That's what they do.
Right. And what's your target for this goes through, and what's your target to I guess break ground still works because the townhomes you break ground otherwise, but what's your target for construction?
Yeah. So our target for phase one, which would include the adaptive reuse and historic renovation of parcels 8 and 9, and the town could include the townhome portion as well, would be to target a fiscal year, not fiscal, a calendar year 28 start. It's probably a 24-month construction process. So you'd be looking at a 2030 delivery date. And for parcel 7, you'd be starting parcel 7 around the time you're completing the other parcels. That gives time for the Rise Center to move. So a 2030-ish start for parcel 7.
And the same, and that's because you need this to be approved, then you got to go to construction drawings, permitting, it's going to take.
Yeah. And the capital stack, if you think about how, one thing that is a little unique in our project, it's quite an honor to be with these other, really impressive firms. I think one of the things that has always been, I'm grateful to be in a city that has created a dynamic where I can stand alongside other folks that look like me, that built their businesses here and have the capacity to deliver on projects like this. But one thing that is unique about our project is we have some historic buildings. And so the way those are financed is going to be through new market tax credits and historic tax credits. And unfortunately, the district does not have a real state historic tax credit. This is something I've been on for a while. I think with all of our wonderful historic buildings, it behooves us to look at this very deeply and how we could better support the development of historic buildings in the district. We work in many other states, all of which have significant state historic tax credits for the rehabilitation of historic buildings, and the district does not. So it's just side note, but that getting the new market tax credits lined up. So it's both a design piece and you have a lead time to line up new market tax credits and historic tax credits and be able to move through that process.
So it's interesting. I had chaired the board at the Lisner home, and we renovated the Lisner home, and we looked hard at historic tax credits and decided that it wasn't worth the candle. And so maybe if there's a state tax credit that goes with it, maybe that might have changed it. But it's a lot of work to do a historic preservation tax credit.
You become, in the historic, when you're doing historic tax credit, you go through a process with National Park Service and the Historic Commission. And so you have to renovate to a certain historic standard. Typically in like the generic state in the United States has a 20% credit at the federal level and a 20% credit at the state level. Some states have as much as a 40% credit at the state level. So when you add the federal and the state, that could equal 40% to 60 or sometimes even more percent of your overall capital approved costs. That becomes a very, very strong component of helping to drive that level of historic progression. At 20%, you're 100% right. At just the federal, it may not be worth it could very easily not be worth the additional requirements that we put on you, the time and the cost it would take to do the historic tax credit. And so I think, for a project like this is such an important consideration. District's full of beautiful historic buildings. And one of the reasons why it doesn't make sense to do historic tax credits in the District of Columbia is because of the lack of a state credit that's in any way able to add on to that.
All right. Well, interesting digression. So the same questions that I asked to the last witness, and the environment is tough and there's a lot of vacancy out there, but you feel, what is it that makes you optimistic, bullish about plunging forward with these projects now?
Well, I think that anybody who's in this industry and space right now has to be, would I think needs to be thinking and needs to have a little bit of caution because this is a very challenging time in development as a whole, and it's a challenging time in the District of Columbia. Our environment, especially around rental housing, is not financeable. Like we've created an environment here where, whether it's down to even tax credits, you have major institutions that won't buy low-income housing tax credits in the District of Columbia because of the environment we have here. So I think we have to be circumspect about that, and we have to be thoughtful about that. When we think about this project, I think there's two components of risk that we have to deal with in moving this forward. And we think that they're manageable. The biggest one in parcels 8 and 9 is finding a way to support these nonprofits that have been hit hard with budget cuts and pullback in funding to be able to sustain their operations and be creditworthy to pay their rent over time. We are helping to address that by pulling in new market tax credits, using the historic tax credits to try to bring down the basis. But that still is the piece that we're trying. That's best supported when we can get some more established organizations like the University District of Columbia, which is one of those 13, to come into the place and to provide some credit and some backstopping of the overall portfolio of tenants that are in there. So that's like the first piece. The second piece relates in our project. We are building affordable housing, 100% affordable housing, and townhomes. One of the products that has continued to actually work in the District of Columbia has been townhouses, and the opportunity for people to, if we can effectively navigate some of the restrictions and machinations of our programs that help get folks into affordable townhomes, that continues to be real demand for homeownership in the District of Columbia and from the community in Ward 8. The affordable housing is going to hinge on the availability of Housing Production Trust Fund dollars to close the gap in addition to the 4% credits. So our project doesn't have market rate rental housing. If it did, I would be concerned. I think these other pieces will require a lot of work and are by no means easy. I would not sit here and say, you know, guns a-blazing is the easiest thing to do right now, but that's what we've done for 22 years here in the district, is do the hard stuff and cobble together the capital stack and the capital sources in partnership with the district and with other partners to make this happen. And so we're confident that this project can go forward, and we have extensive experience pulling together some of these complex financing sources that are necessary to make it happen.
So two things here. I mean, one, I asked this question, I think I mentioned before, to the Hill East folks who felt like, well, there's a lot of activity at RFK, and so we think that will benefit. And it may be that St. E's is a locus of activity where it reinforces itself, and so that can increase your confidence in the success of something here. Does that figure into it?
I look at it as these projects combined bring St. E's to life in an additional way that as they execute will create a place that add to the destinations already been created, and as a place to live. It creates a residential submarket, and it brings a diversity of housing options, right? So some of these projects, you know, are a mix of market rate and affordable housing. There's a mix of home ownership in a couple of the projects. And so I think you're going to start to see the diversity of housing stock that would represent the diversity of the community that exists in Congress Heights and bring life to St. Elizabeth's. I think that is something that I think we can believe in long term. The question is how long.
And then the other thing, which I thought was interesting, is your reference to townhomes and a high demand for townhomes. And I'm wondering, like, as I look at the multifamily sector, and I see there's a lot of vacancy in the multifamily sector, but where is the demand? And are you seeing this more? These projects include townhouses, and is that a coincidence, or is that an indicator of how folks in your world are perceiving the long-term demand or the market that we haven't quite addressed here in the district? Do you follow me?
I think that there's, as someone who's spent a good part of my 25 years running a business here in the residential sales world as well, there is significant demand in the District of Columbia for affordable or attainable home ownership. I think that has always been there and has continued to be strong. The market is not great for single family homes in the District of Columbia right now, especially in the mid price points, but that should create an opportunity potentially to advance home ownership in that space. When it comes to the economics of development, you can deliver townhouses. Takes hard work, but it's possible to deliver townhouses with the appropriate programs in place to allow people to purchase them and for you to break even on your investment and potentially even make a profit. If you look at the history of some of these sites, which is probably worth a deeper dive and probably not my area of experience, but if you were to look, you asked the question earlier about what's happened on the St. Elizabeth's campus. I think you would see a very stark difference between the success of the townhouses and the success of the rental apartments at St. Elizabeth's. And that's not a coincidence. That's because when people buy and own their home, they're responsible for it and they take care of it. And we have created an environment that's made it harder and harder to appropriately tend to rental housing. And that has, I think, created some challenges for our city.
So we're covering lots of stuff that's not necessarily about your surplus and disposition, but it's interesting. When you say the success, that's not success from ribbon cutting, that's success in maintaining operations, that the townhouses have thrived, whereas in the rental housing setting, here's what I'm hearing, it's been more difficult because perhaps in part because of non-payment of rent, making it harder to, is that what you mean when you talk about the success?
Yeah, I think if you were to look, and I think I love the question because I think success exists at many levels. I think if you were to look at many of the townhouse developments in Washington, D.C., the folks that took the risk to invest and build them, they were able to sustain their businesses and they were able to make a profit from the work they did. However, success is way beyond that. The people that moved into them were able to maintain those houses, stay in them, and they got equity appreciation, increasing their wealth. So to me, the intended policy outcome has been achieved. We were able to use the private sector to deliver a good for people. People were able to acquire that good. It benefited their lives and it helped them create wealth. So if you look at that from the full range of success, it wasn't just commercially successful for the developer, it was successful for the person who moved in. And I think on the other hand, not only has it been uncommercially successful for the developer of the rental housing, it's been unsuccessful for the resident of the affordable housing who's had to live in oftentimes less than adequate conditions and deal with a whole bunch of issues. So I think we have to look at that full spectrum of housing, and it's not just, those things are connected. When you can have them work symbiotically, where both parties involved are winning and creating something that works over time. And I believe that townhouses are one of the few places where we've seen that actually work. Not always, but we've seen that work.
Well, again, very, very helpful and interesting digression. And now I'm going to turn to Mr. Binti, but thank you for your testimony. Mr. Binti, this is you're stepping in and hopefully saving the day on what has been a troubled project. Are there other factors that have impacted the progress of the development other than the need to take over from NDC? We hear a lot about the capital markets today and its impact on development, for example.
No, my partners on the bench, I think, have done a very good job in elaborating what the current conditions of the market are. So I'm not going to bore you with additional details as far as that's concerned, unless you have specific questions around that. However, as far as the development is concerned, I mean, doing developments in the District of Columbia have been pretty straightforward, I would say, for a pretty long time. I mean, this project is an historic designation, so we would have to work with the agency that administers that to secure that approval. Once that's done, we'll need to proceed with the regular pre-development activities in terms of securing a building permit and hopefully be lucky enough to identify capital partners to want to continue to invest in the District of Columbia. So other than a lot of the things that our predecessors have gone a pretty long way to address, I can't tell right now if there are going to be any other unforeseen issues that may arise. But if they do arise, we'll be working with DEMPED and other parties to address them.
And your target on this project? What's your target for construction on this project?
Well,
Hmm.
I mean, I would love to start tomorrow. However, we'll have to go through a historic review, like I mentioned. So we anticipate that would take, hopefully no more than 12 months. And after that, we would take the balance of 9 to 12 months to secure a permit. So we're hoping that we'll be in the ground within 24 to 36 months.
24 to 30, 24 to 36 months. So sometime in 2028 would be
Yeah.
the goal.
That would be the goal, yes.
Okay, and a number of things have changed in this project. The retail goes down from 21,000 to 5,000. And I guess the number of housing units goes from 421 to 241. Can you explain to me what drove those changes and why they were necessary?
Yes, sure. So number one, the site is significantly challenged due to easement from I want to say DC water. So the site had to be reconfigured to be able to accommodate and address that easement. Secondly, we have other mechanical issues, HVAC system that needed to be addressed. And again, bluntly speaking, from a marketability standpoint, we wanted to be able to introduce units that one could be absorbed and two are not cannibalizing the other projects that are also going to be developing on the site. So by doing that, we had to think of a purpose-built development that provided, a good ecosystem of housing, which is why we decided to introduce a senior component of housing because there aren't any housing to accommodate our pillars of society. So we decided to introduce the housing for them. And we also introduced housing for families as well. So we basically bifurcated the site primarily due to market factors and putting us in a position to be successful, like Mr. Minkiti had mentioned earlier.
And how many buildings are on the site that you're going to have to renovate and bring to life?
We are proposing two separate buildings. The senior building would essentially be 90 units of senior housing at the 50% of AMI range. 100% of those units would be at 50%. And the family building would be 151 units. And I'm happy to give you the breakdown of that AMI if you want it.
Sure. If you give me the breakdown of the AMI, and then when you say the whole building is family, so there weren't no one bedrooms or studios in that building, all 2 and 3 bedrooms?
1, 2, and 3s. So the 1 bedrooms are approximately 750 square feet. The 2 bedrooms are 950 square feet, and the 3 bedrooms are 1250 square feet. So we would be looking to introduce a total number of what am I doing here? Yes, a total number of 24 3 bedrooms, 33 2 bedrooms, and 94 1 bedrooms.
Okay. And
And the AMI breakdown is essentially 46 units at 30% of AMI, 53 units at 50% of AMI, and lastly 52 units at 60% of AMI.
okay. And I mean, when it was going to be 421 units, was it going to fit in the same 2 buildings, or was there going to be additional buildings?
That was the original plan with NDC. NDC was just basically building one, massive building of 470, 400 and 400 plus units. And in this particular case, we're doing 90 and 151 units. So that brings it down to approximately 241 units total.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the retail, why does the set aside for the retail space come down as much as it does?
So again, because the number one reason the large footprint of the building footprint changed significantly. So that's number one.
Mm.
And number two, unlike my peers, I'm not as bullish when it comes to retail. So, and I don't necessarily want the tail to wag the dog, is essentially why we shrunk the size of the retail.
Okay. The term sheet amendment also adds 180 days to the period for completion of the parcel once construction begins. Can you talk about
Yes.
why did you feel that was necessary?
Sure. So your typical development project do not require any HPRB review or approval, which this project will. And there is a lot of uncertainty as far as that timeline is concerned. So we have been involved in HPRB transactions that have lasted between 12 to 24 months alone. So we needed to make the necessary accommodations for that. And obviously, subsequent to that, we will have to, work with DOB to secure, and all the other agencies that have a hand in development projects to secure the necessary approvals. So obviously, PEPCO, WASA, um, 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 Washington Gas, so on and so forth. So they will have a say, Department of the Environment. They will all have a say as far as this transaction is concerned. And most importantly, it is our hope, and I'm sure it's the same for my peers on the bench, that the market forces would have swung dramatically by the time we're ready, such that the investor confidence is high and willing to basically come back and do more deals in the district.
Okay, and then in terms of construction, is the retail and the residential, are they in the same buildings or is it a freestanding retail building?
It's in the same building.
Okay, so once you start the residential construction, you're starting the retail construction.
Yeah, correct.
And is it both buildings? Is it like the first floor of both buildings is going to be retail, or is it just one of the buildings?
Just one of the buildings, just a multifamily building.
Okay.
Yep.
And help me understand, you said, I mean, one of the challenges that you faced in addition to NDC going out of business was this covenant or easement that DC Water has the covenant?
Yes, so there's
The
an easement. Yes, there's an easement on the property right now that essentially cuts the site in half.
And is,
And this, go ahead.
I mean, is that like there's a DC Water pipe that goes underneath and you can't do construction and disrupt that pipe?
Precisely.
So the big building might have gone over that pipe.
Yes,
So that
correct.
building wasn't possible. Instead,
Correct.
you have to do two buildings, one on each side of the pipe with a big
On
enough
a
clearance.
much smaller footprint. Correct.
I see. So
Yeah.
that's super helpful. That I had
Yeah.
not understood that. So that's what's happened here. And an alternative is DC Water moves the pipe, but that's got to be incredibly expensive. So you just have to work around the DC Water pipe, and that's what.
Precisely. Yeah, and all of this was identified way after the RFP had been awarded. So, once you do all your title search and so on and so forth, and your civil engineer investigations, then you encounter all of these additional factoids that, forces us to adapt, or forced NDC to adapt, which they did, and we obviously adopted.
Okay. On that, actually, I'm really glad that we got at that, because it didn't, the reduction from 421 to 241 units, you heard me in my opening statement say, like, regret to see that. We want to see more housing, not less. But that's not that could in part be a business decision because you don't want to oversaturate, but it's actually driven by physical conditions. You couldn't build a 421 unit building. You need to do the 2 separate buildings. So that's super helpful. I think with that, I'm done with my questions. If any of you had anything that you wanted to add, I'll give you this opportunity to do so.
Only I do have the total unit count for you. I can hand you this document so that you have it for reference.
All right, great.
Before I go.
If you hand it to us, that
Yes,
would
sir.
be wonderful. Well, thank you all for your testimony. Really appreciate it. And we will move on to our government witness. Thank you. Okay. We are now joined by Ms. Latrina Owens, Director of Real Estate at DEMPED. It is the practice of this committee to place our government witnesses under oath. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of law that the testimony you are about to provide to the Committee on Human Services is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. Ms. Owens, you may begin your testimony.
Good afternoon, Chairperson Lewis George and Chairperson Fruman, as well as members and staff of the Committee on Facilities and the Committee on Human Services. My name is Latrina Owens, and I serve as the Director of Real Estate within the Office of the Deputy Mayor for Planning and Economic Development, led by Deputy Mayor Nina Albert. I am here to testify in support of the following bills: B26-0121, St. Elizabeth East Parcel 13, Extension of Disposition Authority Amendment Act of 2025, B26-0466, St. Elizabeth East Parcel 13, Term Sheet Amendment Act of 2025, B26-0425, St. Elizabeth East Parcel 7, 8, and 9, Surplus Declaration and Disposition Approval Act of 2025, and B26-0530, St. Elizabeth East Parcel 6, Surplus Declaration and Disposition Approval Act of 2025. These bills support the comprehensive redevelopment of St. Elizabeth East, a campus rich in economic promise, historic significance, and federal adjacency. The campus represents one of the last major redevelopment opportunities in the district, a chance to transform 183 acres into a thriving mixed-use destination for housing, health, wellness, innovation, and community benefit. Located just under 3 miles from the U.S. Capitol and served by the Congress Heights Metro Station, the site offers strategic access for development that serves residents, federal tenants, and regional demand. First, I would like to thank you for holding this hearing and acknowledge the invaluable contributions of the community, particularly the past and present members of ANC 8C, the residents of Congress Heights, Ward 8, and the many other stakeholders who have helped to make revitalization at historic St. Elizabeth East a reality. B26-0121, St. Elizabeth East Parcel 13, Extension of Disposition Authority Amendment Act of 2025, B26-0466, St. Elizabeth East Parcel 13, Term Sheet Amendment Act of 2025. Approval of the Parcel 13 extension would extend the legislation authorizing the mayor to dispose of district-owned real property known as Parcel 13, located behind the Care First Arena on the newly constructed 13th Street Southeast Washington, D.C., and identified for the taxation and assessment purposes as Lot 850 in Square S 5868. Approval of the Parcel 13 Term Sheet Amendment would effectuate moderations to the project that would allow it to be economically feasible. This extension is necessary because the original legislation B24-0466, the St. Elizabeth East Parcels 13 Surplus Declaration and Disposition Approval Act of 2021, which declared the property surplus and authorized the disposition, expired on March 10, 2025. Without an extension, the district would lose the legal authority to move forward with the disposition, jeopardizing years of planning, investment, and community collaboration. On the term sheet amendment, I'd like to provide the background behind the need for the changes. Parcel 13 is a 4.2 acre unimproved parcel identified for mixed-use development in alignment with St. Elizabeth East, the St. Elizabeth East 2012 master plan. It is situated directly across from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security at Consolidated Headquarters and adjacent to the Care First Arena. Following a competitive solicitation process, DMPED selected the Neighborhood Development Company, NDC, as the Parcel 13 developer in November 2020. Despite strong community engagement and selection through a transparent process, progress on the disposition has been delayed. We respectfully request an extension of the mayor's authority to dispose of the Parcel 13 property, as NDC has faced significant financial headwinds. As of September 30th, 2024, NDC was required to reduce its development portfolio to unpaid rents and ongoing negotiations with traditional financial institutions. These challenges that many small and minority-led developers have historically faced, particularly when relying on conventional lenders that may lack the flexibility or commitment to support community-focused projects in complex capital markets. The project held particular meaning for NDC's founder, Adrian Washington, a respected figure in the real estate development community for over 25 years. Adrian grew up in Congress Heights, and leading this transformational development in his childhood neighborhood represented a full circle moment, a dream project that someone deeply committed to equitable growth in the district and rooted in Congress Heights. In accordance with the Land Disposition and Development Agreement, NDC has executed an assignment and assumption agreement with Dante's Partners for the redevelopment of Parcel 13 with the district's concurrence. Dante's Partners is a mission-driven, affordable housing developer with a long-standing track record of delivering equitable, community-serving projects across the district. This transition ensures that the original vision of Parcel 13 remains rooted in community-centered development with the capacity and experience to bring it to fruition. The term sheet amendment effectuates this change and modifies the project due to a complex site conditions involving, you talked about them earlier, but involving the WMATA Transit Authority infrastructure on the rear of the site is where their HVAC system for the Congress Heights Metro is located, and a utility easement on the newly constructed 13th Street Southeast. The proposed development will now include approximately 241 housing units, including units dedicated for senior facilities and 5,000 square feet of gallery retail space and gallery and retail space. We remain confident that Dante's Partners can carry this vision forward in a manner consistent with the community's expectations and the master plan's intent. The project is still expected to bring significant benefits, including mixed income housing creation, job creation, tax revenue, and the activation of a currently underutilized site. B26-0425, St. Elizabeth East, Parcels 7, 8, and 9 Surplus Declaration and Disposition Approval Act of 2025. Approval of Parcels 7, 8, and 9 Surplus Declaration and Disposition Approval Act would declare district-owned real property known as St. Elizabeth East Parcels 7, 8, and 9, located at 2730 Martin Luther King Jr. Avenue Southeast and known for tax and assessment purposes as lots 822, 839, and 856 in square 5868S are no longer required for public purposes and authorize its disposition by the mayor. DMPED completed a competitive solicitation process to select a development team, which included a community engagement process to obtain public input from the community. To review the proposals, DMPEG convened a selection panel which unanimously recommended the development team of the St. Elizabeth East Legacy Partners, led by the Mankiti Group, and comprised of other local businesses, including H2 Design Build, HEP Construction, and ProLightened. Approval of this bill will allow for the development with a mixed-use concept, including 888,000 square feet of office, 29,300 square foot of retail, and 18 townhomes, which, for clarification purposes earlier, that is the component that included the housing. So right now it'll be 30 townhomes, 200 apartment units, and then retail, which faces MLK Avenue. The development team will create over 2,600 construction and 900 permanent jobs, generate over $125 million of new tax revenue for the district, and provide pathways to opportunity for residents and businesses in Wards 7 and 8. We are excited that this project is moving and that momentum continues to build at the St. Elizabeth East campus. And lastly, B26-0530, the St. Elizabeth East Parcel 6 Surplus Declaration and Disposition Approval Act of 2025. Finally, approval of the Parcel 6 Surplus Declaration and Disposition Approval Act will declare district-owned real property known as St. Elizabeth East Parcel 6, located at the rear of the development on the corner of the newly constructed 13th Street and Pecan Streets Southeast, and are known as tax and assessment purposes as Lot 968 and Square 5868S, as no longer required for public purposes, and approve its disposition. DMPEG completed a competitive solicitation process to select a developer, which included issuing a request for proposals to create mixed-use and commercial retail development. To review the proposals, DMPEG convened a selection panel, which unanimously recommended the Parcel 6 Community Partners proposal as the Parcel 6 developer. Approval of the bill will allow for 202,758 square feet of development with a mix of residential, retail, and community serving spaces designed to support a vibrant and inclusive neighborhood. The project will deliver 17,700 square feet of retail space across 2 buildings. The residential component includes 515 units, thoughtfully designed to meet the wide range of income levels. This includes 507 apartment units across the Martin and the Malcolm, along with 8 live-work townhomes located in St. Elizabeth East Parcel 6, Disposition Analysis Building 1. The development will be supported by 185 parking spaces, providing accessibility while encouraging walkability and community interaction. Across all of these projects, the district will support a once-in-a-generation opportunity to create housing, economic opportunity, and vibrant neighborhoods consistent with the St. Elizabeth East Master Plan. St. Elizabeth has become a national model for transforming public land into housing, economic opportunity, and vibrant community spaces. I'd just like to add that I was invited by the U.S. Council of Mayors on last week because this has been recognized as a national model. So the district, other people around the country are looking at what we're doing at this project and I'm trying to learn how they can scale it in their jurisdictions as well. The decisions before you today extend far beyond approving development agreements. They represent an investment in people, possibility, and the future of the city. Together, we have the opportunity to transform land into legacy and vision into lasting impact for generations of district residents. Years from now, residents will remember the home they were able to afford, the business they were able to open, and the job they were able to secure, and the community they were proud to call home. We respectfully ask the committee to move these bills forward in the fall legislative session and allow these vital projects to proceed. Thank you for your time. in consideration. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much for your testimony, Ms. Owens. Trying to understand timeline and all the different things that need to get done before we have people moving into homes. And one of the issues is infrastructure. When will the St. Elizabeth East Campus Stage 2 infrastructure and utility improvement project be completed?
So that's slated to be completed in 2027.
Okay. So well in advance of delivery on these projects, actually, frankly, before any of them were talking about starting construction.
Correct, but the infrastructure needed for these projects has already been delivered.
Okay. And then for the parcels themselves, I think that you talked about the timeline for the RFPs in your testimony. How many bidders did you have for each of these? Do you recall?
So for 7, 8, and 9, there were 2. No, for 6, there were 2. For 7, 8, and 9, there were also 2. 2 for each.
And then 13? It's a while ago.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I can't recall. I have to look.
Okay. And then the community engagement process for each, like there's a reference to that there's been community engagement on each of these, but what did that look like?
So community engagement at St. Elizabeth's happens all the time for every project. And that was a commitment I made to the people of Ward 8 and to Congress Heights when I started, that they would never be on the other side of the fence trying to figure out what's going on. So community engagement happens whenever there's an event, not just at your normal ANC meeting that happens monthly. Because I am of the belief that not every neighbor attends an ANC meeting. So there's outreach at Sycamore and Oak. We have Go Go Santa. There's outreach there to neighbors. We have weekly workouts. Everyone sets up a table. There's outreach there, as in addition to the ANC outreach as well.
And how long have you been working on these St. Elizabeth projects?
I was named in March of 2019.
Okay, that's a bit. You have to be excited to see shovels hit dirt.
I am.
And then we've heard different things about the job projections for individual projects, but what is DEMPED seeing as the job projections for these projects together?
Together, we're looking at probably about 5,000 temporary construction jobs, and then permanent jobs, probably about 500 permanent jobs, with the addition of the retail on MLK, some of the retail on 13th Street Southeast.
So, and when you say on MLK, so as you're coming up on MLK, there's like a lawn area, and then there's the building, there's the kind of service drive, right?
So that's the Gateway Pavilion. So if you're coming on MLK and you're passing the hospital, so you're traveling, coming on MLK, and then you make a left onto Cypress Avenue, you have the RISE Demonstration Center, which, as Mr. Menkidi told you, will be relocated into Parcel 8. So when you say on MLK, there is retail, long-standing retail on MLK who has sustained the community for years. So
The other side.
the other side. So in the master plan, what's across from that should also be additional retail. So it'll be a retail hub.
Oh, that's where the retail
Correct.
is.
Correct.
I was wondering whether the retail was in the buildings on the other side of the service drive, but no.
No,
It's right on MLK where the parking lot is.
Correct. On the service drive, a road, there'll be additional roadway construction, which will connect Sycamore Avenue to Pecan Street, and that will complete the roadway network.
Okay. What, on this topic of jobs, what are the different CBE requirements for parcels 6 through 9?
Well, the CBE requirements, all of those 6 through 9, most of these, well, all of these projects are CBE led. And they make up the entire development team is an all CBE led team. And I think what we have noticed is that when you have CBEs and CBE led teams, they hire from the community. St. Elizabeth's East has been able to be as aggressive as it has been with the development. We've constructed about 6 buildings in 7 years because we have relied on the CBE market to deliver for us. So when we talk about St. Elizabeth's, there is a firm belief in our small businesses, our small local businesses, that they hire local, but that they are there to work, and they've helped us get these projects across the finish line.
And then you heard me ask before, there was reference to small box retail, something like 20,000 square feet. And I think everybody, when that comes up, wonders grocery store.
Yeah, working hard.
So what does that mean, working hard?
So out at ICSC this year, we have engaged some retailers, and I'll be going out the end of the month to look at a retailer who's interested in coming to the district. And they're very interested at 2730 MLK, which is the address for that parcel, the current address for that parcel.
Okay. Glad to hear it. So you heard me ask about the target dates for construction and completion from each of the developers.
All right.
And I mean, I think it was pretty consistent early FY 28.
28, 2030.
Yeah, so some early FY 28, which could be a calendar year 27 date, some calendar 28. So, but is that your general sense for all of these projects, that much of it could get started at the end of calendar year 27 or early in calendar year 28?
Yes.
And then 24 to 36 months for
Yes.
construction? So the surplus hearings for parcels 6, 7, 8, and 9 happened a long time ago. I don't know if it predated you, or I believe as far back as 2019. So you might have come in shortly after or while these things were happening.
So that's when I did those surplus. I conducted those surplus. Yes.
So what were the factors? Why has it taken as long as it has?
Well, with surplus in 2019, we released some of these solicitations in 2020. So it's not, we were going parcel by parcel. In the interim, we had the Care First Arena open. We've also had a hospital open along with the 801 East Men's Shelter. We've constructed a 750 space parking garage. So there were things still happening while we were releasing RFPs.
And I hear you. And there was also a little thing called COVID that happened.
We were able to accelerate during COVID.
Really?
Correct, because you didn't have to deal with traffic. There were a lot of circumstances that allowed us to accelerate during the COVID environment.
So COVID was not one of the things that slowed it down, but it's just phasing. And when we finish with these parcels, how much left will there be to do at St. E's?
So when we finish with these parcels, we're reviewing parcel 1 now. That will just leave parcels 3, 4, and 5.
And how many people live on the St. E's campus right now?
I would say right now we have about 600 people living there.
And what's the vacancy rate on the St. E's campus? Do you have a sense?
No, we're not dealing with vacancies at the moment. And a lot of people who live there, they also work at the Care First Arena. They also work at the Whitman Walker Max Robinson Center. or they're employed at Sycamore and Oak, as you heard Mr. Elias say earlier this afternoon.
Okay. Regarding parcel 6 specifically, the development analysis stated that the development plan did not meet the affordability requirements under DC Code 10-801. The analysis stated the project needed at a minimum 38 apartment units set at 30% MFI or 36 apartment units set at 30% MFI and 2 townhomes set at 50% MFI. Will this project be updated in order to conform with the legislative requirements?
The apartments do meet the affordability requirements, so I'm not clear. But I can take a look at it. But yes, it'll meet the 10801 regulation.
It does.
Yes, it
as
does.
It is, as it stands. Okay, well, apparently there's something in the development analysis stated that it did not, but maybe it's been adjusted or maybe that was wrong. But
Yeah.
let's circle back. I asked already whether the current road infrastructure is sufficient for access for parcel 6.
Mm-hmm.
Is the introduction package for parcel 6 stated that the parcel requires a zoning map amendment prior to commencement of construction? Is that right? Has anything been done
No.
for this?
In the master plan, all the sites have already been zoned. I think the only thing, and then the requirement for housing in front of the garage is a requirement from the Commission on Fine Arts and Historic Preservation.
Uh-huh.
So we will, I can look into that, but I'm not sure that a map amendment is required.
Okay, I think the introduction package suggests that it might be. So let's harmonize
Okay.
the thing in the development analysis and the introduction package. I'm leafing through because I asked about unit sizes to the developers and don't need to ask you again. Is the residential aspect of parcel 7's development in conformity with the affordability requirements of DC Code 10-801?
Yes.
Parcel 7's office component depends on a DGS lease spec for the Department of Behavioral Health headquarters, but that's out.
That is out. So that's why we sent it with, if not, then this is the option, and that's the 200 units. And the 200 units in the 30 townhomes that Mr. McKeedy spoke about.
So one option was with DBH would
Correct.
require a lease back. Without DBH, instead of 160 units, 200 units and 30 townhomes.
Correct.
And we're in the without DBH world, so there's no DGS
Yes.
lease back. Turning to the specific term sheet amendments for parcel 13, can you comment on the 6-month extension to the period for completion following the start of construction? Why?
I really can't put it into context. That's why I would love for you to come out so we can give you a tour of the site. But just to understand the complexity, especially for that site. And in addition, Mr. Benitier told you about the historic preservation, the Commission on Fine Arts requirements for review to make sure that it meets the historic requirements, but then also just where the parcel is located in the ravine. And a portion of parcel 6 and also a portion of this site, the Congress Heights Metro runs underground. So that's a pretty complex site.
Okay, so I hear you on that. I mean, actually, some of those other things, fine arts, historic preservation,
Takes time.
but those are all before construction starts.
Mhm.
So this is an extension after construction starts, but what I'm hearing you say is there are physical reasons about the site that make it particularly complicated that it would be reasonable for someone to say, ordinarily, I can promise you in 2
Right.
years, but this one, I need an extra 6 months because of the ravine,
Right.
the WMATA running below ground,
Correct.
okay? Um, um, I mean, this has been difficult, and the closing of the Neighborhood Development Corporation is really a loss for the city and a terrible indicator of the state of the market and non-payment of rent. And but to what extent did DEMPAT have transparency into the transaction between NDC and Dante's parties? What partners? What was that handoff?
So I am not in tune to their business negotiation, but just that they presented someone who we know could feasibly move forward with the project, but that would be something if, about their deal, you would have to talk to Mr. Benitier, but NDC had spent quite a bit on pre-development prior to going out of business.
But had NDC come to you and said, we want to transfer this project to a new party, you would have done an analysis of that party to determine whether or not that party would have the capacity to do this project.
Correct, and we did. So they had a right to assign it in their land disposition agreement, and they exercised their assignment
I see.
Within the LDDA.
And was that an unrestricted right of assignment, or did assignment subject to your approval?
Assignment subject to approval.
And then, did you do any kind of community engagement around the change in the partners? How did you manage the change in your partner in terms of community engagement?
So there's some outreach. There's always outreach with the Congress Heights community, and then with the ANC, but not that any type of written support is required.
Okay. And is anybody from NDC involved in the project still?
I am not sure. They may be some project management components, but you would have to, I don't know who's the actual staff is.
And in terms of the timeline of the handoff between the two, that's not so much, they would come to you with an assignment, you would approve or not approve that assignment.
Correct.
When did that happen?
That happened in September of 2024. Let me just double check if it was 25 or 24, and I'll get back to you with that.
Okay, and you heard me in my opening statement where I thought it was unfortunate that we went from 421 to 241. And you want to get as much housing as is reasonably possible on these sites. But am I correct? I think I've come to understand that it's the physical constraints on the site that keep it. And so, and then when you looked at that, 241, do you think that's the most you can do on this site reasonably?
It is. So when the RFP was released, the site was 4.2 acres, which is what I read in my testimony. But at that time, 13th Street had not been constructed. So when it was constructed and the utility easement created an additional setback on the site, it shrunk the amount of buildable area that you had on the site. So I think this is sufficient. I do think the product that's being offered is needed because we do have quite a few seniors in the Congress Heights community, and it complements what's the other housing offerings on the site.
And then the decrease from 21,000 in gallery and retail space to 5,000. Why?
Well, so that's part of their component, but I will say we are between parcels 13 and parcels 7, 8, and 9. And then you also have parcel 15, because Sycamore and Oak is just a temporary use of the site. You also have additional retail coming there. We are, DENPAD in conjunction with the Office of Planning, we are looking at those, especially 13th Street, to just make sure it's not over retailed. So you don't want to get all these retailers there and then they're not, they don't have the sufficient foot traffic that's needed to stay in business. So we are looking at that just to make sure it's not over retailed. So it's fine to offer a gallery space because we have a lot of retail in the live work component, and then also on the ground floor of the Martin and the Malcolm, additional retail on MLK, and then additional retail on the ground floors of the commercial components on parcel 15. So
Okay.
we go from no retail to lots of retail in Congress Heights.
Okay, and then you referenced that there's a demand for the senior units in the lots of seniors in the Congress Heights area. How do the senior units differ from an ordinary one bedroom? Or are they one bedrooms? Are they going to be studios, one bedrooms, two bedrooms, and how would they differ from?
I would have to get the breakdown. It's not that the units differ. It's just that you're in a building with a like group of people, which are seniors, and then there'll be services, additional services for seniors in the building as well.
It's more what happens inside the
Correct.
building as opposed to the walls. Although it may be that the bathrooms are all done in ways with bars and things like that.
Maybe if it's a handicap accessible unit.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I do not see Councilmember Lewis George. I think I have finished with my questions, all very exciting. It's great to see the St. East campus come to life, and this will be a big step forward. So excited about it. I don't have any other questions. Do you have anything that you'd like to say?
I just want to add that it was September 2024 when the assignment was completed. We just checked. And I just want to thank you for holding this hearing today. And thank you to all of our public witnesses and for just the communities and the council's continued support in the St. Elizabeth East project. So thank you.
All right. Well, thank you. This concludes today's public hearing. Yes. Checking to make sure that we're good. If you plan on submitting written testimony for the record, please do so by uploading it to the council's electronic hearing management system before the close of business on Monday, July 27th, 2026. The time is now 3:30 p.m. and this roundtable is adjourned.